Hey, what's going on, guys? So before we get into the chapter review, I want to do a recap of the previous chapter, and going forward, the recaps won't be any more than 30 seconds. So why am I doing the recap? I just want to say very briefly, if you've watched some of my other videos, you know that I usually start out the video with a standard couple of sentences, and so I'm having to cut that out. And because I'm making these changes, I figured why not just go ahead and do a brief recap. That way, something fresh. That way, if you've already seen the 600 plus One Piece chapter reviews I've done, you'll be able to actually get something new before you dive into what you're already familiar with. So with that being said, let's just jump right into the preview for the last chapter. So the recap for the last chapter. So in the last chapter, we get introduced to the main character of Luffy. He's the devil fruit, and later on in the chapter, he, after picking a fight with one of the bandits who's making fun of Shanks, is in the water. He can't swim because of the devil fruit. Shanks ends up having to save him, and Shanks ends up losing his arm. Now, what's very interesting about this is that 10 years later, Luffy actually sets voyage, and he's got that straw hat that Shanks gives him, and Luffy is vowing to become the king of the pirates. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I also like how one of the things you get is that Shanks gives Luffy his hat, and he says, "Give me this hat when you become a great pirate one day." And so essentially chapter 2 is picking up right where the last one left off. So with the recap out of the way, let's just jump right into the chapter review. So chapter 2 of One Piece, I am very pleasantly surprised by everything that we've gotten so far in One Piece, because I wasn't expecting this level of adventure. I wasn't expecting just the different character interactions and development we got out of the secondary character of Koby. So without further ado, I want to kind of jump further into this review. So when the chapter opens up, you actually see Luffy. He's on the ship, and all of a sudden he's getting sucked into a whirlpool. And this is like, how do you get sucked into a whirlpool and you can't swim? But luckily, Luffy has his wits about him, and he jumps into this barrel, and somehow he ends up on the pirate ship of Alvida, which I'll touch on in a moment. But the next scene is we get this wimpy, scrawny, gutless, backboneless, however you want to describe him, Koby. And Koby is on Alvida's ship after Alvida just completely decks this guy for not cleaning the ship thoroughly. She looks at Koby and she says, "Hey, you're the chore boy. You're going to do a really good idea. You owe me your life." And then she proceeds to kick him and then stick her shoe out to him and says, "Only thing you're good for is polishing my shoe." And what's really interesting is the fact that, Alvida has a few insecurities that are on display here. The very first thing is the fact that, when you rule people like that, it says a lot about your mental mind state. So she's got some self-esteem issues. And then the other thing is she's doing that whole play off of Mirror, Mirror on the Wall from, I think, Snow White. And she's saying, like, who's the fairest of them all? And Koby is saying, "Oh, Alvida, you're the fairest of them all. You're the prettiest of all the seas." And what's really interesting is the fact that, when we first get introduced to Koby, he's telling her that she's the fairest of them all. She's the prettiest. And then by the end of the chapter, he's like, "You dirty old hag. I'm not going to work for you anymore. Luffy's going to kick your ass. You ugly, ugly hag." Like, it's a complete 180. You see the growth. You see Koby go from this character who has no backbone to actually being able to stand up for himself. So I thought that was pretty cool. And I like the fact that after Koby finishes his chores, he ends up finding Luffy's barrel, and he takes it down to like the supply room or whatnot, and they're all thinking outside of Koby, the pirates who are down there in that storage room. They're like, "Yeah, we're gonna get drunk, we're gonna have a good time. This is a really heavy barrel. There's probably a lot of alcohol in here. Like, let's go ahead and get us a few bottles cracked," right? All of a sudden, Luffy just comes flying out of that damn barrel, and he's got his arms spread out, and he's just like, "Yeah, I had a great nap. Oh man, that was awesome. Didn't think I was going to survive that whirlpool, but hey, I made it. Hey, who are you guys?" And that's when all of a sudden they're like, "No, who are you? How are you going to say to us, who are we, when you're on our ship?" And that's really funny. It's very comical. It's like Luffy has very bad situational awareness, and that's one of those things you know, with shonen characters, with the main characters, a lot of times they're complete idiots. So I kind of like that. I kind of like that. I kind of like what you see with Luffy there. Now, the other thing I thought was interesting was after the fact, Luffy's just like, what are you guys doing here? Like, he fucking owns the ship. That was so hilarious. So after Alvida's mace just comes flying through the door, you know, Luffy and Koby kind of get out of there, and we find out that there's this terrible bounty hunter named Roanoa Zolo, who the Navy has captured, and Alvida's pirates are just completely scared of this guy. And at the end of the chapter, Kobe's like, you can't put this dude in your crew. This guy's bad news. This guy is an absolute beast. And Luffy's just like, hey, if he's a really good guy, he can join my crew. And so what was really interesting about this is that after Luffy gets off with Koby, you know, Luffy is kind of sizing this guy up, and he's listening to his story about how Koby wanted to go fishing, and he ends up getting on a pirate ship by mistake, and all of a sudden he's been working for Alvida for 2 years in exchange for his life. He has to do all the grunt work, and he has to kind of boost her head up and tell her how beautiful she is, even though that's the exact opposite. And so what's really interesting about that is Luffy kind of teaches Koby the same thing that Shanks taught him. And Luffy's just like, hey, and I'm paraphrasing, but Luffy's just like, hey, if you got a dream, you don't give up on it. So what? I need a pirate crew to go to the Grand Line. I'll go. No problem. I'm going to be the king of the pirates. Yeah, I said it. That's my goal. And Koby's just like, you're completely crazy. You need wealth and fame. Everyone has to kneel to you. And you want to go after Gold Roger's One Piece. And I guess that's what they're calling his treasure. But, you know, Luffy doesn't hear anything about it. And what's really interesting is the fact that what he's teaching Koby in that moment is that when you have a dream, you stand up for it. You fight for it. When nobody believes in you, you press forward all the more through. And with Koby, he makes Koby a believer in the way that Luffy stands up to Alvida. You know, got Luffy, this really scrawny kid, standing up to this really huge sumo wrestling looking chick and Alvida. And when everyone's like, you're the fairest of them all, Luffy just looks at Alvida and he's like, who's this big old biddy right here? And Alvida just loses it at that point. And Koby starts to correct him, saying she's the fairest of them all. And that's when Koby's just like, oh, no, you dirty old hag. Luffy's going to kick your ass. And like Koby's just kind of popping off at the mouth. And Luffy's just like, good job, dude. Good job. Now I'll take things from here. And Alvida, she swings that mace at him. And all of a sudden it bounces off. And, you know, you start seeing how important it is that Luffy is made out of rubber. Because it's going to be really hard to injure this guy. And then Luffy proceeds to completely just one-shot Alvida with a attack. I think it was called the Gum Gum Pistol. I'm looking for it right here in the manga. And yeah, it's the Gum Gum Pistol. And I thought that was pretty cool because in chapter 1 of the manga, Luffy tells Shanks that he's going to punch like a pistol. And now one of his attacks hits like a pistol and it's named after it. And it completely knocks Alvida out. Her crew is completely in just, you know, shock at this point. They can't believe that Luffy has actually defeated their leader. And that's when they're like, yeah, you know, we need a ship. We need this. We need this. And they have no choice but to comply. Otherwise, Luffy's going to, you know, knock them out as well. And I like how as they're setting sail, you know, Koby is, you know, kind of stepping on Luffy's dream a little more. And Luffy is sticking to his guns. He's saying that, look, I'm going to be king of the pirates. I need somebody in my crew. And I'm going to go after this Zolo guy. Like, I'm going to go after Zolo because, you know, he sounds like he could be pretty interesting. And it looks like that's where they're going next. So what I want to have for you guys is I want to, you know, keep doing this chapter question thing. And I want to ask you, was there ever a time where you had a dream and people kind of laughed at it? You know, what was your dream and why do you feel like people made fun of it? And what have you done to make that dream a reality? But as always, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment and rate, subscribe, share the video. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Have an awesome day.